I'm going to talk a little bit about the SPLC just to give a little context for the discussion. We are a 501c3 nonprofit membership-based organization that brings together large institutional purchasers in government, in corporations, including JP Morgan is a member. Maybe that's how you guys found me, I don't know. And also universities. And we're bringing these organizations together with suppliers that provide more sustainable goods and services, and really working together to define what sustainable procurement is, what are the prioritized best practices to do that, how do you integrate that into your purchasing process, and ultimately, take collective action towards more sustainable goods and services, and also more sustainable suppliers in alignment with the purchaser organization's sustainability goals and other initiatives. So circularity is a prioritized strategy for many of our members, and I'm really excited to really lead the discussion about these great examples that we have of circularity here locally in Boston and really around the world. So without further ado, I do need my glasses. I think we're going to start just by, I wanted to just share some of the discussion topics that we're going to cover today. We'll talk about what sustainable purchasing means from, our panel members' different perspectives. I shared what my perspective is. We will have you hear some best practice case examples from all of our panelists. We'll talk about what success looks like, why do we even care about sustainable procurement, challenges, and here, just discuss maybe some of the solutions to those challenges. So now let's go ahead and have you guys each introduce yourselves, where you're from. We already know you, but please still go. And just tell us a little bit about yourselves.
You guys haven't heard enough from me.
All right, we'll come back. Hey everybody, my name is Wei. Wei like the highway. I've been in Boston for about 10 years now, and it actually brings me a lot of joy to see a community like this. They're excited and interested in the circular topic, and that's like every one of you in this room, so thank you for coming. So I initially came to, start with what I currently do. I currently work at a company called Bevy. We're just about 2 blocks away from here, in that building called the Schrock Center. At Bevy, and Bevy is a company that basically is trying to optimize your supply chain for your favorite beverage. So take your spin drip that you're sipping right now. We had 2 primary insights. First one was the primary weight of a beverage is water. Like 80% of that is water, and like a majority of the cost that goes into that bottled beverage is the transportation and the bottling. And so we're just trying to get rid of transportation and bottling by creating a machine that takes a lot of the base ingredient for the beverage and allows the user to mix and match and make their favorite drink at the point of use. So that's what Bevy does, and at Bevy I'm a mechanical engineer, and I do a range of working on new products and fixing some issues that might come up from time to time about existing products. And been there for about 2 years now. And the last thing I would just say is, I said I came to Boston 10 years ago, so I came here initially to do school at MIT. I was studying mechanical engineering there. But a couple years later, I decided to stay because Boston is just such a cool place. And I've just been working in a couple of companies in the area, so very excited to be here.
Thanks.
So there's actually a vending machine where I live. So
My name is
highly recommend. So my name is Stephanie. My business is called Cycle Styling, and essentially I beautify spaces in a sustainable manner. I concentrate in interior styling, residential, or events, and then I also do home staging for real estate industry. And I'm also looking into helping, small business owners that are either starting businesses, shops, restaurants, etc. Help them with their layout and in-person experience and the styling of their places, or even helping with staging, their photo shoots when they're starting out. And so that's a little bit of cycle styling in a nutshell. Happy to connect later on if there's any more questions. But I originally am from Puerto Rico. I've been in Boston for 2.5 years, a little bit, most likely. So I moved June 2021 for a job opportunity. Unfortunately, that was cut short, and now fortunately, I can say that that layoff was actually sort of a blessing in disguise, because it really opened up time to take what initially was really more of a hobby, passion, that came with like interiors and decorating. My family, my friends, everywhere I went, rearranging spaces into a viable business. And so officially I started the business this year in March. And yeah, now I'm here, very grateful for Eric and being part of the circular economy conversation.
Hello everyone, my name is Michael Wilbank. I work in construction as a sustainability manager for the STO Building Group, representing Structure Tone in Boston, working in commercial construction, and we're from a small kind of 8,000 square foot office fit out to we have a 300,000 square foot project over at One Post Office Square. Working in construction, I've seen a lot of innovation that is needed. There's quite an addiction to the linear economy, throwing things out, maybe making something 30 years ago that was very efficient in supply chain when you don't think about the impacts of it, but really kind of antithetical to the climate crisis and what's needed. I also co-chair the Carbon Initiative Forum of Boston's Reuse and Deconstruction Group, and really working in the building industry, which is about 40% of global carbon emissions, to really figure out what we can do better. I would say, similar to the way I came to Boston a little over a decade ago at Northeastern for undergrad in 2010. I fell in love with the city and I have not left since. So really excited to be here and hopefully kind of learn something myself and get the good word out and continue to grow opportunities like this.
Thank you. So you guys heard a little bit about how the SPLC defines sustainable procurement. What does sustainable procurement mean to all of you? And in particular, what role does circularity play in that? And you guys can just, go at random.
I would say that really, I think procurement is half of construction. It's knowing kind of what you're putting in, buying it, and then putting it into a certain specification. To really make that sustainable, there's so many kind of elements to look at that, but all the way from kind of sourcing. Are you sourcing from a virgin material? Are you looking to kind of incorporate a recycle? Are you looking to fully reuse or upcycle? And then all the way through installation. And then I would say sustainable procurement is even on the back end of that. If I'm brought into a demo, or I hope to soon just call it deconstruct the space, what am I pulling out of that, and how can I make sure that that is going to either the manufacturer who made that or some, just like a land business here, trying to give it to a secondary market or upscaler to really make sure that that can be put back in. So it's easier on that end for a designer who wants to have a new table, wants to have something put in space, that they have options to kind of fill those gaps in circular procurement.
It's more of a life cycle approach.
100%.
Yeah, I would say for me, and I can give a little bit more background on how I was thinking about this business. I went back to just the USGA's sustainable design principles, and I decided to focus on 2 of them: optimizing your space and then minimizing waste. And so for me, sustainable purchasing starts when you start planning for your space. So not only just moving into a new apartment or moving into a new space or a new home and start just purchasing stuff because you like them, yes, that is very fun, but it also can be very wasteful because you don't know where to put it, or you end up, trying to resell it or get rid of. It has happened to all of us, I am sure. But planning would be that number one step for me, and so that's why with my clients I create a floor plan, a mock-up of a room to understand, okay, how can we maximize that space or that site, right? And then really just how are you acquiring these furnitures, these like housewares? Can it be purchased in a secondhand retailer? Can you thrift it? Can you go to Goodwill and repurpose something into what you're really looking into, right? I like to give the example of my standing desk. I did not have a desk and decided to use a footrest of a bed that was in our building's trash. And it was in perfect condition, like painted, with solid wood. And so I thought, okay, this solid wood, I can refinish it if at some point I want to change it a little bit. But I can use it as my tabletop for, my new desk, and I have a new product at home. So really that for me is sustainable purchasing or procurement. I think it also adds into like the circularity piece of it is you are extending that product's life cycle, right? So you are giving it a second or third or even fourth life when you decide to procure within your community, within your neighbors. Is somebody else wanting to dispose of something that you can probably use, or vice versa? And so I believe that gives the product itself circularity. And not only that, but the money that you are circulating when purchasing to your neighbor, when purchasing to someone within your community, also creates that economy, right? And so you're not directing that money potentially to a corporation that is manufacturing not in the best way or sustainable or even ethical, I would argue, but you're keeping that dollar within your community. So that's what I think.
You touched on a lot of great points. Sustainability specifications really are involved. The planning side, right?
Yeah.
And then even bringing up the local community developments and be mindful of labor rights.
Yes.
It's all very important. Anything else to add?
Yeah, I'll just ask me quickly. I think it's interesting here because everyone here comes from such different backgrounds. But at Bevy, our primary function is to design and manufacture a machine that's designed for a 6-year useful life. And so I think echoing some of the things that's been said, we definitely care about where the material is coming from, how it's made, but we also think about kind of at the end of life, what happens to that machine, and how can we extend its life, and how can we kind of responsibly take care of it when it's no longer able to function. So some of the projects that have been really exciting for us is when we go back to machines that have been developed a couple years ago. After that 6-year life, there was actually a recent project that tried to refurbish some of these machines, and basically we take these machines, put them through quality and functional checks to vet them to make sure they still meet the standards that we hold ourselves to, and for the ones that kind of meet our standards, we put it back in the field and gives it a couple more years of operating in the field and still keeping it away from the landfill. But in the product development space, as I'm sure some of you may be aware, sustainability is important to us, but there are complications to it. If we were to try to build the most sustainable product ever, the cost might be through the roof, and the time to build it might just take way too long. So it's important to think about cost, think about lead time, think about reliability of the person who's giving it. Oftentimes, like a lot of these suppliers, a lot of these new startups are coming out with like sustainable ways to like produce something or to make a material or or offer a process to do something. Like they are pretty small in scale, and while we try to support when possible, like they're not always like the most reliable business partner to go into business with. And I say this not because like we don't want to support these companies, but just want to. Those are like in addition to thinking about sustainability, which a lot of the team members of the company care about. There are all these other kind of layers to the equation that we also have to prioritize. And yeah, it's a fun game of juggling.
I love how you mentioned looking at the reliability and longevity of the products. So with our members, we often refer to that as total cost of ownership, such that a lot of organizations buy based on cheapest cost, right? So what if you look at the whole life cycle of that product and evaluate the cost of maintenance, the cost of disposal in the cost of it? So great strategy for sustainable procurement as well. So let's talk more about Bevy's new office space. So let's start to hear about examples of sustainable procurement in this context. I understand that you guys were looking to maybe get some more sustainable materials and products in an office space renovation. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, actually I have 2 stories to share there. Yeah, so I'll start with one. So first story is, a couple of months ago, just for context, Bevy has about 100 people, and the majority of these people, and our headquarters is in Boston, but we do have teammates spread out around the country, like in sales and manufacturing, just to focus on territories. And for the last couple of years, the headquarters was in the shop center, which is an office space that it's kind of like WeWork that different businesses rent out space from. And Bevy was occupying like a minimum 3 spaces. We had engineering and manufacturing like in one suite, with business teams in another suite, with the operations team in a different suite. And I think we had like an operation, like just a storage space in the group too. So we were just kind of all spread out. And during COVID, an opportunity came up where we were, like our lease in the space was ending, and we were exploring a couple of different places to move to where we could combine everybody. And we ended up getting a good deal to stay in the shop center, and it offered us a big space where everybody could fit into. The team that was planning that had a budget, right? Like they had a budget for. Actually, take a step back. We knew how many people were going to occupy the space, and from there we reverse engineered kind of how many like furnitures we're going to need, how many chairs, how many tables, like what to put in the kitchen area, and from there we reverse engineered to get like a budget. And when the team started kind of looking for options, they were like, I'm sure one of the options was buying brand new from like existing suppliers, and that came at a pretty steep price point. And we were also working with a moving company at the time, where like from a move this, they put out stuff in boxes and they would move it for us from the old space to the new space. And we're telling them about our process and how we're making furniture, and they, in our moving company, like, which we did not know this going to this conversation, but moving companies know a lot of other companies that are moving for a variety of reasons. And they were able to connect us with other companies that are local who are downsizing. And we went out to kind of look at some of the furniture they were trying to get rid of. And a lot of those furnitures were not near new, they were like in really, really good competition. So we ended up getting a really good deal in buying these used furnitures from a different company that was trying to get rid of it. I think had we not brought it, it would have gone to the landfill. So it was a win-win-win all around where like we got a good deal financially. We kept it from the landfill, and yeah, I've only heard good things. Like I haven't heard anybody complain about it in the new space. So that's one story, you know, like it's fun to look for the brand new options, but definitely look for opportunities to buy used and whatever context you might operate at. And then the second story, and I'll try to make this brief, but basically members of the team, we actually I won't be discreet here, but at Bevy we have a green team, and green team is just a small kind of interest group of people that are interested in sustainability and grassroots, you know, like just people kind of talking, like meeting regularly to talk about different things we can do. One member of the team brought up this company called Job Value. And this is months ago. This is months ago, okay? Like this is like 3-4 months before before the actual move. People brought it up. We looked into it. We just loved how we loved the founder story. He's got studied wood engineering, and then like started Job Value, upcycling wood. Like that's crazy. And then he built this franchise model where like he's in like somewhere in Europe, but he built this franchise model where people like Elaine, entrepreneurs like Elaine, all over the country, can like kind of take this and run with it and scale it. And also just love the circularity of taking job space and putting it into something useful. And we were all just big fans. And at the time, you know, the next immediate action is like, okay, can we support it in some way? Personally, the price tag was a little high for me, like to put it in my house. But I was like, okay, like I can afford it. Maybe Bevy can, right? They have more money than me. So I reached out to our office manager, told her about this cool company and the products that they offer, some of which were fit in the office space. And I totally expected her to say no, and that'd be it. But surprisingly, she was like, remind me in like 2 months when we're like closer to the moving date. And I was like, are you sure? And she was like, yeah. I was like, isn't this expensive? And she's like, compared to the prices we're looking at for office furniture, it's like that's reasonable.
Mind you, you said you saved a lot of money.
Right, exactly.
For reuse.
Exactly. That's the other
Yeah,
thing.
reuse. I mean, that actually is the best way to promote sustainable procurement as a system, right? As a system of solutions.
Exactly.
Continue.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. I guess at the time when I pitched it, like we hadn't had that cost savings yet. But fast forward,
Yeah.
the team was very, we were able to find cost savings from the majority of the furniture, and we were able to, and like create a budget for supporting some of the products at Job Value, and I guess the rest is history, right? Like
What were the outcomes? What did you end up?
Yeah, we ordered a couple of pieces of furniture. Please correct me.
I can tell you exactly what you have. So Bevy wanted some custom showing units to go next to the Bevy unit, right when you come in. So we have nice glassware
Very
to go
nice.
and get your Bevy. So we did a couple of shelves. They're really beautiful, and they wanted a kind of a wow factor when you walk in. So there's a logo. We put a big big piece of butcher block and had the logo made out of acrylic, and we put that on top. There are some of these moss, something that looks like this, but moss square kind of decor on the wall, and then there are some custom coffee tables as well. I think that's right.
That's
great.
right, yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
So Elaine, and thank you, Ray, for sharing those stories. So Elaine, from a vendor perspective, how did the partnership with Bevy really demonstrate success of sustainable procurement and the implementation of circularity?
I mean, I think when we started talking to Bevy, it was like, oh, we're doing this big office move, we're going to need everything. And so, as a young new company, we're like, okay, we're going to do all the tables for every single office move. And so over time, it became like, oh, we actually aren't going to do tables with you because we found this great way of upcycling, of repurposing things that already exist, and You can't be mad about that, right?
No.
So it's, you know, because the
Competition is trash.
the point is, I think Bevy is an ideal partner because they're so mission aligned in terms of sustainability, and so, and they also are just up the road. I mean, we were kind of joking the whole time about the 1 mile supply chain, and I think we're 1.1 mile, like we're just over a mile, but we can call it the 1 mile supply chain, which is amazing. Like this is,
Yeah.
these are, you know, that your coffee tables are now made from things that we have diverted from landfill in the local community. They're manufactured right here in Charlestown, you know, in the same, really literally within the same space. So, so we just kind of drove over there in our truck and dropped it off, and that was really, it was
It's awesome.
great. Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah. So I think finding mission aligned companies has been a pleasure in all of this, and then you have companies like giant behemoths like JP Morgan, which you said are part of your network, that have been huge supporters of ours too, that I just honestly going into this didn't take that authentically, but it's there, and so that's been part of what's been great about discovering what people are really committed to.
That's great. Thank you. Michael, so how about some success stories from the construction industry?
Sure, yeah, so especially in commercial construction, I won't lie, it's difficult. It's difficult because I think there's a pretty profound ignorance, not only to kind of solutions that do already exist, but an ignorance into kind of changing patterns that need to be changed. The advent of ESG and kind of how the tentacles have moved through, I think, almost every single industry has pushed people and push industry to try to find a quick and maybe dirty solution when oftentimes there is a much more reliable, much more regional circular solution there. And in construction right now, while I have some sway over kind of what is put into a project, it's really the name of the game is waste. And with so much waste, how can we not only take steps forward in reducing that waste, but start to push it to more circular? Over at a project I have at One Post Office Square, I came up with the radical idea of not putting all the waste together and making sure you can separate it. It seems very, very easy, like some circular solutions can be, but because it's not typical, it's not what is always done, it's seen as some sort of boutique service or some sort of radical change in process. But in doing that, I've been able to separate about 78 tons of clean gypsum wallboard. And while I'm currently sending that to Pennsylvania, I'm hoping to shame National Gypsum into taking it back because some drywallers can now take that and put it right back in their feedstock. And I don't want it, my company doesn't want it, the owner doesn't want it, and I'm willing to give it away to whoever wants to take it. So the success stories that I have and hope to continue to have are really just making the connections with what's possible. If I have all of this, hearing about the furniture story, I can't tell you how many sites I've been to in which the owner is like, I don't want this, get rid of it, I don't care where it goes. And it's very easy to put it into a giant dumpster and say bye and pay $600 and never think about it again. It's much harder to kind of connect that with a business or a residence that can use that material, and that really needs to. Exactly. And really making those connections and finding what is possible, because there's always a fear of, oh, it'll cost more or it'll be so much more complicated. But it isn't, it's not harder, it's different. And once you realize that, now suddenly I can feel much better about the cost of it, the timing of it, the carbon of it, to kind of give these materials and give them a second life or really just keep them out. So I hope to really kind of continue to grow that. And the last thing I'll say is that I would say the pipelines right now, it's in the Boston area if you want to kind of expand to the US, for kind of maintaining either material or product circularity, very, if established, kind of very weak. And the more that these steps are taken, these first, second steps, if I can give just 10 sofas from a corporate office fit out to a green mission, to the furniture trust, or to kind of a business like this, it makes it easier to then give 20 in a month and 50, and then I'm not just doing it, my competitors doing it, or other people in the industry are doing it. So it's just the real circular success stories just come in trying and just making a case for it. You can probably make the financial case if you look into it. And once you have that, just repeating it, refining it, and growing it. Because what I have found in the past years in my position is that this isn't rocket science. I just said, hey, don't put that there so we don't mix them together. And now I can activate these levers that weren't there before. So it's really just about kind of trying, I would say, and then you'll find success as you go.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. To the
Sarah,
I think it's really like success for me at the individual level is that mind shift, right? So that trying or having that intention first. That's why I say like, okay, start planning, because that's how you know what you really need, and what you don't need, you just don't need, period. But that mind shift not only is, and it's not easy, it's not easy to act as you have normally acted for the last, 30 years of your life, just, okay, this is just disposable. But just stopping and pausing and saying, okay, if I buy this, will this eventually become trash, or will I have another use for it later? Or will somebody have another use for it later, or can I donate it to an organization that will have a use for it? So like pausing a little bit and being patient, because I think like right now in society, like immediate, like reward or having things getting shipped immediately, like Amazon 2-day shipping, or having it the next day. It's just easier and faster. Yes, but is it really worth it? Like, does that piece of furniture really last for you? Maybe not. Maybe it does, but chances are it doesn't. And not only fostering that at the individual level, but then in a household, can we teach the rest of the households how to operate? Because it's certainly a big mental load at first, and then it just becomes a little bit more automatic. Okay, I'm not buying Ziploc bags anymore, because once I finish with the last box that I had, then I can probably purchase a silicone or like a different material that can be reusable. I just clean it up and reuse it again. So I think the success really at the individual level is being patient, having that mind shift, and really having being graceful and patient with yourself to take that step. And it won't be perfect. It will never be perfect. I'm certainly still making a lot of small changes within my household, but a small change will go to another, and then that I can teach that to, children, my friends, family, etc. And that for me at the individual level might seem like it's nothing, but it's really like a huge mind shift.
I would actually build off of that, and the more you have that, especially in organization, I think it really kind of catches on. There's oftentimes kind of the young professionals who are filtering in kind of inherently have that, but the moment you can kind of have that and show that off, and it is a bit kind of infected, and people kind of gravitate towards that. It can be quite magnetic, and then before you know it, just because you have shifted and kind of see the bigger picture, see the light, suddenly now it's changing the systems thinking of the processes. Like I said, that maybe we've been there for 30 years, but we can't do this anymore. But now we have evangelists who are kind of going in there and kind of spreading that, and really growing off of that with others is I think the most effective way to really kind of spread that through.
Thank you all very much. Let's see, we have some time for questions from the audience here. About 10 minutes right here?
Yeah, about 10 minutes.
All right. Questions? Yes?
Did the Bevy product come with a label that said how many chopsticks went into it? And what was the label of the big wall one? Do you remember how many?
I don't remember. The wall panel is about the same size as that desktop, and that desktop has 9,000. But we did count up all the chopsticks that were cycled through the whole project, and I think it was something like 30 or 40,000.
Wow.
Wow. So you can check our Instagram, there's a reel.
Other questions?
I would just real quickly add, there's a real power in telling the story. I mean, sustainability is the story. I've seen, if you want to talk about kind of shifting procurement patterns, the companies who, and granted some of these are large companies, but who have gone forward and said, hey, here's the kind of nitty gritty about this. So here's the recycled content, who's the sealants have, what have you. But being able to tell the story, where it came from, and then kind of if it's 9,000 chopsticks, it's that there's an impact to that. And I think, call it people now to know or delay, really, I think you find success by saying, oh, these 9,000 chopsticks could have been put into landfill. This is their carbon impact. And I mean, carbon is a number that there's so many calculations you can be made off that. So you can say these 9,000 chopsticks had enough kind of embodied energy to run a house for a day and a half or drive your car this many miles. And there's a real power in that, and I think if you want to change purchasing, either kind of on the largest industry scale or kind of the smallest consumer, being able to tell that story so people can feel good about that is incredibly powerful.
You're totally right. I mean, I think that's where we feel the most energy with partners that we're working with. So deals that we have in the pipeline are with some of our recycling partners. So we're talking with Bonnie about tables for their new, 2 of their new locations. We're going to do a pilot with Wagamama, sometime hopefully in the next 6 months. And they are all recycling partners, and they're what we call closed loop partners. So not only are you recycling chopsticks with us, but you're buying back the materials you've used in your spaces. Takeda, just over in Kendall, is a closed loop partner. So they are recycling chopsticks every Wednesday on Sushi Day. They have these countertop bins that you see out there for the chopsticks that we're collecting today from you.
Talking about employee engagement.
Absolutely. And so, yeah, it's like, and they're talking, so we did first, we actually just, the prototype of the shelf that we gave to Bevy was for Takeda. But they're thinking about, their dining staff was so excited about it. They were like, we need a sign that says order here and pick up here, and we're gonna hang from the ceiling, and can you make this for us? 100% yes. So having that circular story has been really, really compelling. And it's not just with our food service partners, but Chinatown as a location, right? So out of, say 100 restaurant partners, we have 8 of them in Chinatown, but they're doing 25% of our volume.
Wow.
And so there's a new public library going up in Chinatown, and there is a new development going up in Harrison. We're talking to them about doing a feature wall in the development, and the story there is, a lot of this material is coming from Chinatown. So the stories have been super compelling.
Yes.
One of the things I love about this panel is like how there are these partnerships and connections that have been formed or like maybe are about to be formed. It's just really cool to see that. And my question is about just like, how do these relationships get made? Is it kind of informal, like you already know people in your network, or are there ways where these kind of partnership opportunities and kind of collaborations are being done more formally? I'd love to hear about that.
I would say just being loud and kind of going, if I need an option, keeps being on my mind, but I have a tech client who wants to now just get rid of 45 Technion sit-stand desks that are about 4 years old. So what do I do when that happens? You can do some research, but just by being loud, I think crowdsourcing, especially in the digital age, is incredibly effective. And kind of developing these networks that, look around here, they're growing and more people are kind of joining them, and just kind of trying our best and just kind of being very kind of earnest about it has found me, and even now, partnerships that you can work with, you can refine, and then you can use that to leapfrog to more, better, different. So
I'd say there are more formal ways as well. So through our organization, we'll develop sustainable procurement guidance for different purchasing categories like swag. So we're in the process of making a best practices list if you want to integrate sustainability, if you're a university and you want to buy swag with a sustainable purchasing need for that category. So we're deliberately bringing in purchasers, suppliers, other NGOs to create official guidance that we can share and grow together.
I would also say on partnerships, unfortunately, there aren't really any shortcuts. So I'm a part of organizations like Associated Industries Massachusetts, or we are certified by the Supplier Diversity Office. So, and they are major connectors, right? And so they will kind of set the table and they will say, oh, Elaine, you should talk to so-and-so about value, and they would love it. And they do, but that doesn't just become a partnership. Like an introduction doesn't become a partnership. So I'm a year and a half into building this business, and it has been hard, right? Like the bevy conversation was probably a 6-month conversation. And the Bon Me conversation it's going on 9 months and it still isn't closed, you know? So, I mean, so it takes a lot of time and persistence, and for somebody like me that's an introvert, and I come from an operational background, I actually did 20 years of nonprofit before starting this business and doing something totally different, but so being persistent and kind of checking in with people all the time does not come easily, and you just have to do it. Like,
Why do you think that it's so? Like, what do you think are the challenges to a quick deal? What are some of the roadblocks?
Well, Michael was talking about like the construction industry is very like risk averse, like and purchasing agents, like they go with what they know, and so how can we convince somebody to do a pilot, or having more deals like it, like, oh, our tables at Bevy have been doing great for X number of, you know, I also say, you know, this started in Vancouver, we have tables that have been performing well in Vancouver airport for, you know, 4 or 5 years, and so that is like super heavy wear and tear. So we have to come up with, you know, examples of quality on our end, but we also have to get that person that's willing to kind of take a chance on a new company and a new product and give it a shot.
Yeah, and I'll just ask my very briefly, like on the flip side of what Elaine said, like it took her 6 months, like it took us 6 months too to like kind of get to the finish line, like and order it, but like what does that actually look like in the ground, right? Like, you know, I was one of the people that I guess learned about job value early on and kind of told people about it, but you have to keep reminding people, and
As
you
a
have
purchaser,
to like
trying
talk
to
to
get
the
this through.
right. You have to talk to the person who actually has the budget, who has that decision-making power. Like I'm a mechanical engineer, like I don't actually like make the purchasing decision for all the office furniture for my company, but I know the person who does. And yeah, exactly. You pitch it to them, tell them why you like it, and like make it a no-brainer. I think when I like reached out, I was like, I'm pretty sure I can pull it back up, but I'm pretty sure like I pitched it as like something that looks pretty, it's sustainable, but I'll let you decide about the price. And like it was like a no-brainer when they looked at it. But again, like it wasn't like overnight. It's like you have to just remind people over time.
Yeah. I mean, another example is architecture firms, right? So we're trying to do presentations for as many architecture firms as possible. And one dynamic post-pandemic is that, you know, they used to do vendor presentations all the time at architecture firms, and then COVID happened, and then there were no presentations for 2 years. And now and you know, everybody's kind of back at work, but they're not really back at work, so architects aren't in the office all the time. So the presentation frequency hasn't increased again to pre-pandemic levels. It went from maybe, you know, once a month to once a quarter or something like that, because nobody's in the office all at the same time. And so there's a huge backlog of vendor presentations. So if you're like, I'm a vendor, I want to do a presentation, they're like, yeah, get in line. You know, there's so many. So, and this is a very noisy space, right? And there's also, you don't know if it's for real. Like, are these people greenwashing or are they not?
Yeah.
Like, are they just saying that they're like a sustainable product?
Yeah.
I would say to combat that though, the getting, I mean, you could be real technical with a full-on case study, but just kind of getting the word out, whether how technical you can make it or not, has been made a bit easier. If you can kind of prove something, I mean, right, construction and I think just the whole building industry can be extremely risk adverse. I mean, half of a construction manager's job is time and money, and it's all in risk. But by kind of showing whether initiatives, once again, like something like an ESG, I don't know how many clients have had these overarching goals that maybe the project team doesn't know about. So bringing it up and trying to pilot something, trying to innovate, trying to introduce a new product. And the moment you can kind of find some success at that first step, broadcasting it or just talking about it, because I don't know how there's so many different, whether it's design firms or owners who want to do good, and if you give them a little bit, they'll start taking a lot. Because they have these imperatives, they need to decarbonize, they need to get to zero.
Strategic initiatives.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you can give them an avenue for that, they'll, like I said, if you give them an inch, they'll try to take a mile afterwards, because I'd say the bar for lowering risk, especially around circularity, the moment you go over that, it really sinks down.
I think like Stephanie was talking about the individual impact and way, you bringing that value to Bevy, like that, I think the grassroots nature of that has been happening a lot. So we actually do have a lot of deals that are made that were brought up by a green team that was formed, and it was brought to the higher ups. And so when it comes kind of from ground up, there tends to be more receptivity to that. The one exception to that might be higher ed. Yeah.
So,
Are you motivation? No, we'll talk. Other questions?
So one more.
Yeah, one more, and then we're gonna wrap it up.
Yeah, I'm just kind of thinking like big picture. And I know you talked about like individual effort and grassroots can help maybe your individual organization or individual company, and maybe that will spread. But I think we know like a lot of times organizations or big companies aren't going to change until they have to. And I know I've worked at places that like large institutions and a nonprofit there, where in terms of purchasing, there are certain, rules and policies we have to follow. We have to buy a certain number of women and minority owned businesses. And at a nonprofit I work for, we had to buy for gifts, it had to be sustainable. Like we couldn't just give like a mug or something, it had to be something. How do you think individuals can work collectively to implement policy changes at organizations so that it isn't a choice for them to just decide, I'll be good today? It's like, no, you have to. And do you think that is necessary in order to change overall, to have those policies implemented?
I think, so we are certified as women and minority owned. We have a carbon negative product. We are a local manufacturer. We have a governor who has an administration that is very friendly to all of these things. We have a mayor in Boston who's friendly to all these things. And it's not enough. It's not enough. So the bureaucracy and the hoops to jump through, it just is so hard. Like the bid process, all of that is like really, really hard. And there are kind of workarounds that are happening to try to make that easier. I would say the one thing people can do is make it known that it's really hard and how it's hard, and bring ideas to the table. Here's one way that we can actually make this easier, and see if that could be considered. And so if there are policies internally, I don't know, this is a little bit off topic, but for 12 years I worked for a workforce development organization that put young adults into entry-level jobs, so it's called Gear Up, and one of our partners is Bank of America, and they had an amazing intern, and they wanted to hire him after the internship, but he didn't have a college degree. And so then Gear Up said, well, but he's worked for you for 6 months, you really like this guy, he's super talented, he doesn't need a college degree to do that job. So Bank of America actually went back and looked at their policies, and they said, okay, we're gonna actually get rid of this policy, it makes no sense. So I think you've gotta find those places of friction and raise them up to the right people, and hope that it, change is slow, but I do feel like it's happening. It's just happening very slowly. I'm an impatient person, so.
I would add to that, who doesn't have a 2050 zero whatever goal? Whether it's higher education has a lot of them, Massachusetts has a lot of them, and the people who make those commitments oftentimes don't realize what that entails. And now there's corporations, and I just wrote a policy for my own company being zero waste by 2040. So I think when looking to kind of change, bringing up small actions that effectively work towards that. A zero waste company they're not thinking about the actual embodied carbon that is in that waste that you can calculate and know. and then kind of where you're procuring items from, or even your own energy, where you're getting that from, and kind of bringing that up and being a loud, passionate advocate is going to sway people and just really tell people, oh, the decision makers, I didn't realize that we didn't have power purchase agreements and we are spending too much, and even though the grid is clean, we could do better, and oh, this composting will actually help us bring here. So that can help on an individual level, and then I think doing that on a greater policy level. There's a lot of cool bills going around in the Mass legislature right now, but I would say they're not enough. And I would say that people are not being loud enough advocates for it and then pushing it even further. There's a zero waste chair that has not brought any zero waste bills up. And so, well, let's actually work towards that. There are other examples of states who are doing that. So really linking to people who are making the decisions, the impacts of their decisions, and illuminating that has been very powerful to kind of make incremental change, because I would agree it's very difficult. But there is an inflection point in which it goes from first step, second step, third step, okay, we're here, kind of thing, and you really get the ball rolling because people become more comfortable with it. So it takes time and effort.
I think green teams within companies too, and like do a lot of that, like
Sure.
this is the shared voice of people who care about this and then.
I want to respond to you, Elaine, on behalf of the state of Massachusetts. Julia Wolf is the Sustainable Procurement Director for the state. And one of her biggest challenges in bringing in more sustainable suppliers and products is literally just putting out policy, but not getting the data back as to what they're actually ordering across the state contracts, so that she can't see if they're implementing the policy. So on the procurement side, especially in a large organization, you don't always have, and especially in government, you don't always have the data that you need to enforce that policy, which is also another challenge for our big purchasers. Other questions? Are we done? Are we
Yes.
wrapping up? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you all very much. Super insightful and helpful.